If you've ever had this experience, you're definitely not alone. You do your warm-ups, everything feels pretty good, voice is balanced, the range is there, you've even cushioned, going a little higher than what the song may call for. The high notes are showing up, the transitions are feeling smooth. You think, great, today is going to be a good vocal day. Then the song starts, and suddenly a lot of things fall apart. The note you just sang 5 times on an exercise doesn't work. The phrase feels tight and constricted. Your breath disappears. Your registration feels really unstable. You feel like you can't really access it, and you're left wondering what happened. If that sounds familiar, the good news is that this is one of the most normal singing experiences in the world. And most of the time, it doesn't mean your technique disappeared. Your brain is working on some other tasks while you're singing a song, so you don't have that same access to your technique that you may have had in the exercise, the warm-up, or the vocalese. It means that the song is asking your voice to do something your warm-up probably wasn't asking it to do, and also within the context of an entire song. So things have happened before, things are going to happen after. So we're going to get into this. And hello there, if you're new here, my name is Dan Callaway. I teach musical theater voice and vocal pedagogy at Boston Conservatory at Berklee. I've spent more than 25 years performing professionally and more than 15 years helping singers build healthy, sustainable voices, and I'm very glad you're here with me today. So here's the big idea for today. Exercises isolate variables or a collection of variables. Songs stack and weave these variables together, and that changes a lot of things. So when you move from an exercise into a song, you have multiple variables interacting along various continua. So when you're doing a vocal exercise, life is usually pretty simple. I mean, some exercises are pretty difficult and make you want to tear your hair out, but maybe you're singing one vowel, maybe you're sliding through a register transition, maybe you're exploring a particular vocal tract shape, maybe you're working on breath management in an exercise, maybe you're investigating your resonance. You're usually focused on one or two things at a time, and that's a wonderful environment for motor learning. Then when you get into repertoire and suddenly you're dealing with language, with emotion, with the identity of the character, with the timing and mapping of your breath, with articulation, with vowel changes, vowel modifications, storytelling, memory of the words and notes, performance pressure, being observed, and often several registration choices all happening very quickly. And so that's not one task anymore, that's 20 tasks. And then, not to mention all the other mental noise that goes on when we sing songs that we sort of have to navigate and deal with. So one of the biggest reasons songs fall apart is language. Language changes the shape of the instrument. Every consonant moves something. Every vowel changes something. The tongue moves, the jaw moves, the lips move. Your soft palate is responding and moving. Your pharynx is responding. The breath is responding. Vocal folds responding to all of that. Everything is in conversation. So the beautiful coordination you found on suddenly has to coordinate into I never thought I'd feel this way again. Something like that. Yeah. Different challenge. They're words. You're shaping something in a different way. Another huge factor is anticipation, and I'm definitely a victim of this. You know the thing is coming. I know the high note is coming. I know the difficult phrase is coming. I know the money note is coming. Isn't that an awful expression? The money note. I don't know. I've never been paid more for hitting that note than not hitting that note. So your body starts preparing for it 3 measures early, or in my case, like at the top of the song. So sometimes before the song even starts, you're thinking, how am I going to map that note? Yeah. So the body begins to gather effort. It gathers pressure. It gathers anxiety and concern around that moment. And then by the time the moment comes, you're already managing a coordination that doesn't actually belong in that phrase. It's super frustrating, but that's a thing. So this is why phrase mapping becomes really important. So instead of thinking, how do I sing this song? I'm going to think, what does this phrase need? This particular phrase. Then, what does the next phrase need? Then, what does the next phrase need? How much breath? How much support? What registration? What vowel shape? What emotional impulse? You're building a map, phrase by phrase, moment by moment. So say if in the resource library recently, we've been working on, I think, Out There. So we're working on Out There from Hunchback. So if I'm Quasimodo, there's my point of view. I'm going to be mapping these phrases throughout the song. At the top, how much breath do I need for safe behind these windows and these parapets of stone, gazing at the people down below me. So that's one task. Later on in the song, he builds. Knowing them as they will never know me. And then, boom, boom. What does this phrase require? How much breath? How much support? All my life I wonder how it feels to pass a day. So then that's just the mapping of the breath. What does identity do? What does emotional impulse do? What is story doing? Yeah, all of those layers are coming in. Not above them, but part of them, then out there. But my brain might be thinking, I've got that. If I were in their skin, I treasure every instant. It could be ruining the whole beginning of the song because I'm thinking about that high note at the end. But if we map phrase by phrase, we map it into motor learning in a layered way. How much support? How much breath do I need? What kind of registration am I using? What kind of vowel shape? We can literally take these individual questions on every phrase and map that into the nervous system. And then by the time we've gotten to the song, the body remembers, and it's much easier to navigate. Another factor that often surprises singers is emotion. When we emotionally engage with the story, a lot of times it can really sneak up on us. I myself, I know singers who can let tears run down their face and they keep their pharynx nice and soft and open. I am not that singer. If tears come, I just seize right up. So I have to really watch crying and emotion in my singing. I have to sort of find out where the edge is and then dance around that edge. I'd like to one day figure out, maybe I can learn how to soften some of my emotional impulse so that I can still sing in the presence of tears. I'd like to work on that. But a lot of singers accidentally confuse emotional authenticity with emotional intensity. Those are not the same things. Hear that again. A lot of singers confuse emotional authenticity with emotional intensity, and they are not the same thing. Sometimes we feel a powerful emotional impulse and then we pour the entire bucket into that phrase. And then the voice has to manage all of it. The breath has to manage all of it. The body has to manage all of it, and all the things get unstable. So I like to think about it this way. I will feel the full emotional impulse. Let yourself experience it. And then when it comes into the artistry of the song, I'll say, so if the full emotional experience is, say, 2 cups, then the amount that I'm going to infuse into the song will be a 1/4 cup of it. So the impulse is real and authentic. The communication is real and authentic, but the system can remain balanced and sustainable, letting your voice come through an authentic expression, but one that's not clamped down. What comes to mind for me is this cover by Nazareth of the song Love Hurts. And I'm pretty sure it's a cover of a standard, okay? So the lyric is love hurts, love scars, love wounds, and Mars, okay? So you think about, and you hear, when you hear the cover of it too, it sounds real like, oh! That's the emotional impulse of it. So I'm thinking, okay, I take the words love hurts, love scars, okay? So who's the identity of the singer? Who's the identity of the singer? I'll let the identity bubble up inside. Love hurts. Then I'll say that word. I'll see the image. Where do I feel that emotional energy? I'll just map in my torso. Where do I feel an activation of emotional energy? Love hurts. Love scars. Now, I can think about times in my life where love has felt like, I have squeezed it out like a wounded animal. Like, oh! Like it can hurt so bad. Yeah. So I have that impulse. Love hurts, love scars. But if I give that full impulse to the phrase, let's see what happens. Or full-ish, yeah. Love! Okay, so that's a little too squeezy. There's some distortion on it. I might want to keep some distortion, but that doesn't feel sustainable to me. And it doesn't feel free. It actually feels like some of me is held back. Oh! You might even see this sometimes in performance when someone's playing a lot of anger or a lot of sadness. You don't feel included. They're kind of having their own emotional moment, and it's not a shared story. I don't know if you've experienced that, but that happens a lot on stages. So Notice what that happens. I think it's because someone can be so about their own emotional experience that they're not creating this bridge of artistry and storytelling. So, love hurts, love scars, love wounds, and Mars. Okay, I think it's an F major, but well, so if I got, okay, so we feel that love hurts. Ooh, so I'm feeling a little, so that was like, if I feel the 2 cups of it, oh, oh, okay, there's my 2 cups. Let me just put a 1/4 cup in there, okay? Whew. I'm gonna feel that. Ugh, yeah. Love hurts. Love hurts. How much breath? How much support? Love hurts. Love scars. Love wounds and Mars. So that's coming through. The feeling of that is quite light, but it makes a very intense sound. So that's the way I like to think about. I want to map the emotion of it. And then inside the song, super important element that I feel like doesn't get spoken about enough, and that's identity. This is one of my favorite topics because singing is not just what note am I singing, it is who am I? What do I believe is happening? What is happening right now? What am I trying to accomplish? The moment those questions become clear, the body often starts organizing itself differently. Your breath changes, your articulation changes, your acoustic shaping changes. The entire vocal event becomes more coherent. So like, what if I take Love Hurts, okay, but I'm going to change identity. If I sing Love Hurts as Roger from Rent, that'll be very much in the world of the Nazareth cover of the song, right? Love hurts, love scars. Yeah, so I'm feeling that identity that I'm looking through. But what if I, what if I sing Love Hurts as Seymour from Little Shop of Horrors, right? So, what does that look like? If I'm Seymour, how is that changing? My identity changes. Love hurts, love scars, love wounds and Mars. Yeah, that's my first take at it. I don't know if that was Seymour, but there's a different identity singing that song. Yeah. So a lot of times identity is a fun way to play and even find comic moments where you may sing a song in a different style. But if you're authentic in that identity, it can be quite effective. So instead of treating songs like giant vocal exercises, we want to treat them like the layered coordination projects they are. We're going to ask, what does the vocal mechanism need? What does the language need? What does the story need? What does the emotional truth need? And therefore, phrase by phrase, what does this phrase need? And then we build it one layer at a time. A big mistake we make is that we want to jump into the song and have a complete experience of singing the song without giving ourselves the ability to layer into motor learning all the components that the song needs. When we do that, it can be pretty simple to build. And the good news is that if your warm-ups are working, if your exercises are coordinating well and you feel like you're able to accomplish the technical mechanisms inside your exercises and your songs are falling apart in places, that's actually encouraging. It means the voice already knows how to do many of the things that you're asking it to do. Now, the work is integrating those skills into language, into storytelling and performance. And you have those tools. The systems are talking. You just have to be like, oh, there's all kinds of possibility on these several continuums that I'm able to explore on. And so I have a whole field of possibility before me that I can play around with. That's a very different problem than I can't do this. It's often a motor learning problem. It is a mapping problem. It is not a capability problem. And even if it is a capability problem at this stage, with consistent showing up, mapping in, letting the body incorporate nights of sleep, you will get to where you want to go. If you'd like help understanding how these systems interact, head over to my Work With Me page below. You will find the free voice map framework, the voice map course, the resource library, and options for working with me one-on-one. Everything there is designed to help singers understand how the systems of the voice work together so that you can stop guessing and start observing with clarity and understanding. And a quick personal note, this is summer of 26. This August 5th through 7th, I'll be performing my new play, Train to Cleveland with John Ruskin at the Circle and Star Theatre in Hampstead as part of the Camden Fringe Festival in London. If you're in the UK or Europe or looking for a reason to visit London in August, I would love to see you there. You will find information on that below. And remember, if the exercise works but the song doesn't, that's information. That is not failure. Stay curious. We will build a map. There is only one you. Somebody would love to hear the story only you can sing. Love much. Now go sing.